All right, folks, welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Coming up for Wednesday, February 6, 2019. Donald Trump State of the Union last night almost completely ignores the concerns of African Americans. Even when he addresses them, he gets his facts wrong. We'll break it down for you. Also, Stacey Abrams of Georgia gives a strong rebuttal and hit voting rights very hard. Joining us on the show is Congressman Al Green from Houston with his reaction to the State of the Union address, as well as what Stacey Abrams had to say last night. More drama in Virginia. The state attorney general admits he did wear blackface in 1980. And the woman accusing Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax of sexual assault comes forward with a detailed account of the encounter, very much at odds with what he says took place. A black woman in Texas is being targeted possibly to discourage black voting. Remember, this is the sister who was sent to prison because she voted erroneously. Then the Tarrant County DA was trying to charge her for a sewage violation. We'll tell you what's going on there with her attorney, Kim Cole, who will join us live. Also in Ohio, an activist, Amber Evans, has been missing for more than a week. We've got the details and how you can help find her. And folks, some white school security guards go real hard on a black female student. Wait until you see the video. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
All right, folks, Donald Trump gave his State of the Union address last night, his second one, and a lot of us pretty much had the same reaction as Illinois Congressman Bobby Scott.
We eliminated the very unpopular Obamacare individual mandate.
Trump did talk about African Americans at least twice in the speech, and here's what he said.
And just weeks ago, both parties united for groundbreaking criminal justice reform. They said it couldn't be done. This legislation reformed sentencing laws that have wrongly and disproportionately harmed the African American community. The First Step Act gives nonviolent offenders the chance to re-enter society as productive, law-abiding citizens. Now states across the country are following our lead. America is a nation that believes in redemption. African American, Hispanic American, and Asian American unemployment have all reached their lowest levels ever recorded.
So what didn't he talk about? Well, let's see. Voting rights, voter suppression, racism, white domestic terrorists, poverty, really health and education disparities, and income inequality. Joining us right now, somebody who was there last night, Congressman Al Green from Houston. Congressman, how you doing?
Doing quite well, better than I deserve. Now, I was not in the room.
So you chose...
I was on the Hill in my office.
So you chose not to sit in the room?
I have not been there since he has been in office.
And why is that?
Because I'm protesting the bigotry that he places in his policies. I don't think that I should be there to legitimize what he's saying.
What did you make of, again, him starting out with this call for unity, and then we all of a sudden switched to the Stephen Miller portion of the speech, where it was just hardcore immigration and things along those lines?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to expect unity when you indicate that you can have peace and legislation, but if you have war, you cannot have negotiation. It seems to me that there was a subtle threat in there for those of us who would like to negotiate, understanding that if we don't give him what he wants, he won't sign anything that we want.
We also issued a threat by saying, don't you dare investigate me.
Yes, that's what it's all about, the investigation. And he's been doing this since Mr. Comey was fired. You might recall all of this started when he fired Comey and then went on national TV at prime time and confessed that he was thinking about the Russia thing at the time he did it.
And so when you saw him, I thought one of the most hilarious moments was where he tried to take credit for the number of women elected to Congress, when the reality is, on the Republican side, they have the same number of women in the U.S. House as they did a decade ago. The growth, when it comes to women, is on the Democratic side, and that's because they beat folks who were supporting his policies.
Yes. Well, he's always had a distant relationship with reality and truth. This is just another one of his attempts to engage in his insidious prevarication. But I do appreciate the fact that the Democratic women were there, and they were all in white, and it made it very clear to the listening audience and looking audience that they stood for something other than what he was standing for.
And of course, they were busy high-fiving themselves by saying, wait a minute, we'll give ourselves credit for what happened, not what he's trying to do.
And he, of course, was taken aback. He didn't realize what he was saying, it seems, and that this would be something that the Democratic women would find favor with, the fact that they have brought this great new influx of females into the Congress of the United States of America.
And so, look, first of all, you give one of these speeches, and it's all great and wonderful, and, you know, but at the end of the day, how long will the unity last? But what, another 10 hours? What you got?
Well, the unity can't last because the president doesn't align himself with his verbiage. He consistently will betray those that have trusted him to go out and negotiate deals. It's happened with senators. It's happened with members of the House of Representatives. He seems to have a group of people, most of whom are not in Congress, dictate what his policies would be. Coulter, Limbaugh, Hannity. Those are the people that he really listens to.
All right. And so what happens next? What happens next with House Democrats?
Well, here's what happens next. The conference committee will come back, hopefully with something that we will be able to agree to. But I think that the president is going to use his emergency powers to go forward without the benefit of legislation and engage in litigation, understanding that it'll be tied up in court for some period of time, and he'll be able to claim his victory, take a victory lap, and move on to his next prevarication.
All right, then. Congressman Al Green, always good to see you.
Always
here on the show. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Now, after listening to 90 minutes of number 45 laying out his plan for the country, did anyone really change their minds about who he is? Now, then, of course, so many people were waiting for Stacey Abrams to give her response to the president's speech. Now, she wasn't in Washington, D.C. She did it from a union headquarters there in Georgia. And, of course, she was a former candidate for governor of Georgia. By most accounts, she did a very good job. And she really focused hard on the issue of voting rights.
In this great nation, Americans are skipping blood pressure pills, forced to choose between buying medicine or paying rent. Maternal mortality rates show that mothers, especially black mothers, risk death to give birth. And in 14 states, including my home state, where a majority want it, our leaders refuse to expand Medicaid, which could save rural hospitals, save economies, and save lives. We can do so much more. Take action on climate change. Defend individual liberties with fair-minded judges. But none of these ambitions are possible without the bedrock guarantee of our right to vote. Let's be clear. Voter suppression is real. From making it harder to register and stay on the rolls, to moving and closing polling places, to rejecting lawful ballots, we can no longer ignore these threats to democracy. While I acknowledge the results of the 2018 election here in Georgia, I did not, and we cannot, accept efforts to undermine our right to vote. That's why I started a nonpartisan organization called Fair Fight to advocate for voting rights. This is the next battle for our democracy, one where all eligible citizens can have their say about the vision we want for our country. We must reject the cynicism that says allowing every eligible vote to be cast and counted is a power grab. Americans understand that these are the values our brave men and women in uniform and our veterans risk their lives to defend. The foundation of our moral leadership around the globe is free and fair elections, where voters pick their leaders, not where politicians pick their voters.
Now, today on Capitol Hill, Congressman Elijah Cummings, who leads the Democrats' House Oversight Committee, he also gave an impassioned speech about the importance of voting. Here we go to my iPad.
1 year ago today, on my mother's dying bed at 92 years old, former sharecropper, her last words were, "Do not let them take our votes away from us." They had fought, she had fought and seen people harmed, beaten, trying to vote. Talk about inalienable rights. Voting is crucial, and I don't give a damn how you look at it. There are efforts to stop people from voting. That's not right. This is not Russia. This is the United States of America. And I will fight until the death to make sure every citizen, whether they're Green Party, whether they're Freedom Party, whether they're Democrat, whether they're Republican, whoever has that right to vote. Because it is the essence of our democracy. And we can play around and act like it's not. And guess what? I want to be clear that when they look back on this moment 200 years from now, that there are those of us who stood up, and they'll be able to say they stood up and said, we will defend, they defended the right to vote. For so many people, their rights are pulled away from them, then they got to put in laws and get them back. Pulled away from them. What does that mean? They cannot progress rapidly. They cannot progress with the rest of society. And all they're trying to do is trying to control their own destiny.
All right, folks, let's go to our panel. Joining me right now, far left here, Joe Madison, host, Sirius XM Radio, Atima O'Mara, political strategist, and also Robert Patillo, Esquire, civil rights attorney. All right, folks, let's get right to it. Look, a lot of attention is always paid to State of the Union addresses, okay? CBS had a poll, their snap poll, 76% of the people said, okay, Trump did a great job. What do you think is going to happen next? Back to warfare?
Well, I think what President Trump was doing, this is the first time trying to be bipartisan. This is the first attempt to reach in across the party line, because when he had control of the House, the Senate, the judiciary, he felt that he could run roughshod over the rest of the American people.
He did.
Yeah, well, the problem was that the radical elements of his own party wouldn't even go along with parts of his agenda. But now that he realizes he doesn't have the power to simply do what he wants and ramrod that through, he's actually putting olive branches through, pulling olive branches out there. That's why he's talked about the First Step Act. He talked about minority unemployment. So I'll say let's find out exactly how far he's willing to go, because since he's now realizes he can't get his agenda through without making compromises, let's make sure we're at the front of that compromise line.
But he's always talked about minority employment, but there was nothing behind that. Nothing.
No, there isn't. I would agree with Robert that I think that there was an attempt to try and be more measured, more bipartisan looking. I don't think that actually, I mean, as some woman said, it was a black woman, not surprising, and she said, you know what, show me the receipts. I'm waiting for Donald Trump to appear at 12 a.m. on Twitter, because that's the man that we all know, and he was trying to, not show that in his State of the Union. So, he's going to take credit for a lot of things, as we've long known have been under Obama administration accomplishments, but, he's been sufficiently neutered, for lack of a better word, by Nancy Pelosi. He's having the State of the Union on February 5th because she was like, nah, you ain't getting your wall. We won an election by saying we're not going to do a wall, and it doesn't do us anything politically to give you what you want. So, you're going to have to work with us and figure out a way to make that work, and clearly that was the approach he was at least trying to make in the State of the Union. Whether he'll actually put that in action, that's up for question.
Joe.
Well, people are talking as if this man hasn't broken every norm as it relates to reasonable politics. Look, he started off bipartisan, and it only lasted about 10 minutes into his speech.
Yeah.
And this whole thing of, for example, we would have been at war if I had not gotten elected, and millions of people would have died. That was one of the most absurd things that I've ever heard, and I think anybody has ever heard a president of the United States say. The reality is he started tweeting the very next morning, and he's right back to where it is. Here's what I anticipate will happen. The conference committee will come up with a bill that probably they will agree to, both sides will agree to. They'll vote for it. He'll probably veto it, and he's going to declare a national emergency, and it gives him cover. It gives him cover with Limbaugh, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, because he knows immediately it's going to be challenged in court, as we all know sitting here. But he will say, I got my wall, though he won't be able to spend a dime on it being built. And as far as this taking credit for unemployment, I used the analogy this morning, Roland. If you ever watched a relay track team, the person who runs is supposed to give you an advantage. And then when that baton is passed, you've got a lead. Donald Trump's role was to maintain that lead. And that's what he's done. So you got to give him credit. But he also has to thank President Obama for coming out of the blocks fast and being able to get the economy back on track.
He's just never done that. So.
And he never will.
Yeah.
Well, and again, though, I mean, the reality is this is not a president who wants to have real substantive conversations with civil rights leaders. He doesn't want to have real substantive conversations with African Americans who are integrally involved in economics, when it comes to small business. They have the big old news conference talking about the opportunity zones. Okay, what you got? Show me something. And so it's all talk.
I will give him. I'll tell you, I will give him credit. I'm sorry, but I will give him credit for the First Step legislation. That was a bipartisan effort. Van Jones and others did participate in that. Cory Booker participated.
Congressman Hakeem Jeffries pushing on the House side.
Absolutely.
But to be honest, the person who really in the White House made that happen was Jared Kushner.
Well, Jared.
Was Jared Kushner.
That's right.
Well, and that for me, that's why I say that it's worth engaging with President Trump to see where he's willing to go. Because if you had asked most of us a year ago and said, would he be signing prison reform legislation, even if it's minor prison reform legislation, into law by November or December, we all would have said, hell no. So if right now he's in a desperate situation where he needs allies, where he does not have the leverage that he once had, let's push it. Let's see how far he's willing to go.
Oh, no. Hold on. No. On this show from day one, I said we must engage him because we are still constituents. We also are not going to listen to somebody lie and make stuff up and act like it didn't happen. And that's the real issue there. And then also for him, credible people are a group of pastors most we've never heard of. Also, credible people for him are Diamond and Silk, when the reality is we know they don't represent anybody in this country. And so he is going to actually have to have the guts to be willing to meet with credible black voices on these issues. He won't do town halls in front of black people. He will not sit down with black media, black-owned media. He will not engage civil rights organizations. So if he is serious, let's have that conversation.
But if we remember Trump prior to becoming President Trump, when he was just private citizen Trump, billionaire Trump, he did make donations to the National Action Network. He made donations to NAACP.
Okay, that was then.
Rainbow Push.
But
so let's cultivate those relationships.
No.
There.
Those very same people have been trying to do that. There's no interest from this White House.
Right. I mean, they did have the HBCU photo op, but what have the HBCUs gotten since then?
$325 million of debt forgiveness for schools in Louisiana.
Okay. What else?
Yeah.
Well, then let's engage and see where we can go from there.
Yeah, again,
we're starting with $320 million. Let's keep moving from there.
If the other side not going to return the phone calls.
Let me tell you something. See, you guys get in this thing about tokenism, and that's what he is practicing. is exactly. So you can talk about, he gave a little token to schools in Louisiana, and I understand. Let's start from there. The problem with tokenism is the person who gives the token determines the value. If I pull out coins in my hand and showed you a quarter, I know it's worth 25 cents. If I have a dime, it's 10 cents. But if I give you a token, I don't know what that token's worth, because the person who gives you the token determines the value. And that's where we make the mistake. We've got to stop this tokenism, quite honestly, on both parties. You know, if we want to be honest about it, and start demanding those things that we need and must have.
There you go. All right, folks, going to a break right now. We come back. We're going to talk about all the drama happening in Virginia. Blackface, sexual assault allegations. It's a whole lot to unpack. That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. All right, folks, a lot of us, of course, have focused in 2019 on improving our health, trying to look better for whatever reasons. For some people, they have to. Others, it's about, of course, beach season once we get to the spring. But based upon climate change right now, it feels like right now is beach season. And so all those things are for a reason. People are choosing various ways to get healthy. One way, of course, if you choose to do full body cleanse. Folks at D Herbs, one of our partners here, they offer a variety of full body cleanses if that's what you choose to do. I did it earlier this year, the 20-day cleanse. And they also have, of course, several that you continue to do. And so if it's about weight loss, if it's about overall well-being, you can try the D Herbs full body cleanse. Now, all you have to do to support, if you want to try it, just go to dherbs.com, DHERBS.com. Use the promo code Roland. Use the promo code Roland. You can also call their number, which is also a number that you can call, 1-866-4D-HERBS. 1-866-4D-HERBS. Remember, use the promo code Roland for the discount when you go to checkout. Again, that's 1-866-4D-HERBS, 1-866-4D-HERBS, or dherbs.com. Don't forget to use the promo code Roland. We certainly thank them being one of the partners here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. All right, folks, madness in Virginia. Madness. Let's first start at the top. Democratic Governor Ralph Northam had blackface on his personal page in his medical school yearbook. Okay? Over the weekend, tons of calls to resign. So far, he has chosen not to do so. He's hired a crisis communications firm, brought them on board to help him out, as he's basically lost all support among local, state, and national Democrats. Okay? That's happening. Then, of course, next, Lieutenant Governor, well, actually, first I'm going to deal with the Attorney General, of course, today. Now, remember, this is interesting. The Attorney General, he called for Northam to resign because of his blackface. Well, here's the problem. Now, that same Attorney General had to come out today and go, yeah, I kind of took a photo in 1980 in blackface as well. Wow, talk about drama. That's Attorney General Mark Herring. Had to admit that. Now, as we speak, the Black Caucus in Virginia, they're meeting to discuss all of this. Now, here's the piece. If all three Democrats resign, that means the Republican Speaker of the House of Delegates becomes governor. And he's Speaker because there's just one more Republican than Democrats in the House. Yes, there was one. Remember, the Democrat lost a coin flip to a Republican that decided that actual race. Talk about craziness in Virginia. Now, let's unpack the story dealing with Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. Okay, so several things happened, and that is his accuser. First of all, remember this note was posted, a conversation between his accuser and another woman. That the website that posted the blackface photo of Northam, they posted this story on Monday. Now, she initially was anonymous. Now, Dr. Vanessa Tyson, a professor at Scripps College in California, she's now publicly come out using her name. She's issued a detailed account of what Fairfax described as a consensual sexual encounter at the Democratic National Convention in Boston in 2004. Now, according to Dr. Tyson, she met Fairfax at the convention, discovered they had a mutual friend, conversed about how hard they were working on campaigns, and she agreed to accompany him on a walk to retrieve documents from his hotel room. This is what she posted today in her statement. I stood in the entryway of the room, and after he located the documents, he walked over and kissed me. Although surprised by his advance, it was not unwelcome, and I kissed him back. He then took my hand and pulled me towards the bed. I was fully clothed in a pantsuit and had no intention of taking my clothes off or engaging in sexual activity. In the back of my mind, I also knew I needed to return to convention headquarters. What began as consensual kissing quickly turned into a sexual assault. Mr. Fairfax put his hand behind my neck and forcefully pushed my head towards his crotch. Only then did I realize that he had unbuckled his belt, unzipped his pants, and taken out his penis. He then forced his penis into my mouth. Utterly shocked and terrified, I tried to move my head away, but could not because his hand was holding down my neck and he was much stronger than me. As I cried and gagged, Mr. Fairfax forced me to perform oral sex on him. I cannot believe, given my obvious distress, that Mr. Fairfax thought this forced sexual act was consensual. To be very clear, I did not want to engage in oral sex with Mr. Fairfax. I never gave any form of consent. Quite the opposite. I consciously avoided Mr. Fairfax for the remainder of the convention, and I never spoke to him again. Now, that was Dr. Vanessa Tyson. Lieutenant Governor Fairfax has stated categorically that the encounter was consensual, and earlier he released a written statement which reads in part, I'd like to begin by emphasizing how important it is for us to listen to women when they come forward with allegations of sexual assault or harassment. I know that many survivors of sexual assault suffer in silence, and it is absolutely essential to their healing and our healing as a culture that we give all survivors the space and support to voice their stories. Regarding the allegation that has been made against me, while this allegation has been both surprising and hurtful, I also recognize that no one makes charges of this kind lightly, and I take it and the situation very seriously. This has been an emotional couple of days for me and my family. And in my remarks on Monday, I think you could hear how emotional dealing with an allegation that I know is not true has been for me. I had a consensual encounter with the woman who made the allegation. At no time did she express to me any discomfort or concern about our interactions, neither during the encounters nor during 3 months following it, when she stayed in touch with me. That's the Virginia Lieutenant Governor, Justin Fairfax. Now, I want to go to my panel on this because we saw this summer. First of all, you've seen some reports saying that Justin Fairfax hired the law firm that helped Brett Kavanaugh. First, Fairfax hired that law firm when she made this initial allegation to the Washington Post. So Fairfax actually hired the firm before the Brett Kavanaugh hearings even took place. And so we see these stories saying he hired Kavanaugh's law firm. Well, they were on board before that. Now, she's hired the firm that Christine Blasey Ford worked with during the Kavanaugh hearings. So, I'll tell you first, you're from Virginia.
Yeah.
Okay. Your thoughts on, I'm going to have two conversations. First, let's deal with blackface. Then I want to deal with Fairfax.
Yeah.
So, your thoughts on Herring now coming out, Northam refusing to resign, and clearly their position is we're not leaving.
Yeah. So on the in the specific result issue of this has been a couple of days. So like I'm a little, when I start talking about it, I'm a little lost for words, which I normally am not, but it's just been a couple of amazing, even the last 4 hours. But in the case of Northam, he actually did the right thing. The first instinct was, this is on my page.
On Friday.
He
apologized.
He apologized. He owned it. You know, there's now state senators, state house members who said he called, he apologized, he wanted to atone. Next morning, advisors come, it won't meet. I don't know how it got on my page. It's a mistake. And then, of course, we saw the ensuing press conference that has been made jokes of in late.
And now he's hired a private investigator to figure out who was it on the page.
Right. All of this. Now, he blew an opportunity, I think, to have a really good conversation about the evolution of who he was as a person, growing up in a time in Virginia where he definitely inherited a whole bunch of messy remnants of white supremacy, Jim Crow, all of that in the capital of the Confederacy area. He blew that opportunity. What in the issue of Herring, what is very frustrating is, one, I'm glad that he put out the statement, and I think it was a very well-written statement. I think it was very thoughtful. The problem is, though, he called for Northam's resignation, supported Fairfax moving up, and knowing probably that this was somewhere in his background. If he had said, you know, he hadn't said anything at all, this would be a very different situation, right? Or if he'd said when that happened, well, since we're all sharing about blackface, why might I want to talk about me and what I did in 1980? Right. And he missed that opportunity. So there's a lot of frustration right now about where we are and how we got here. But, you know, right now, I mean, we're in basically sort of a state constitutional, I don't want to call it a crisis, but what do we sort of do with that, especially as we as a party have drawn a line in the sand and said this is not acceptable, especially in the era of Trump, which I think is a good thing. But there is no way, I mean, I think that the reason why a lot of legislators aren't on TV or anything right now is because they're trying to figure out what can we do within, you know, realm of government.
So, Robert, on the blackface, what do we do? Should they resign? Should they stay? One happened in 1984, one happened in 1980.
Let's throw the whole state away. Let's understand one thing. People can change rhetoric. It does not change who you are. If you were dressing in blackface in 1980 or 1985, that still influences your public policy. That still influences how you view other individuals. If you thought that, we're talking about 1985 like it's 1905. This is 30 years ago. These people knew these things were out there as soon as you got into public office. If you wanted to address this in 2010 or 2015 before it got outed by the press, then I could have some respect for you. But when you wait till the pictures are published and wait till you know it's coming out to address it, then that means you were not going to address it unless these things came out. So get on up out of office, call a special election, get somebody in there who doesn't have this baggage. And if you are in Virginia and know you have some blackface photos, just go ahead and beat the cavalry in and get on out of office before they catch you.
I was going to say, I would agree with you on the photo, and it should not happen in 1985. I would agree that it's a problem, and I actually called for Ralph Northam's resignation. I fundraised, I've organized for him. I was in that cavalcade of folks who said so. However, his policies today are not abhorrent or unbeneficial to black people or the community at large, right? And so that has been the quandary. It's sort of like, it's easy to talk about it in regards to Republicans because it's like, well, the policies haven't been all that great. Not all the time, right? There's been a few things you've got first stepped and whatever, but everything else has just been terrible.
Joe.
Seems like the only person that hasn't had a blackface in high office is L. Douglas Wilder. You know, the reality is this. You know, I'll cut a deal with the Republicans in Virginia. I'll cut a deal with the Republicans nationally. You give me Steve King, and I'll give you Northam. Right. I mean, let's understand. This crap has been going on for 400 years. Yeah. And we're all sitting up here like we're surprised.
I'm not surprised.
400 years that started in Virginia.
Thank you.
In August of 1619.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you know, and I too initially said, you know, you've lost your moral authority. Yeah. And I think that's really the whole question. And he really blew it when he went into that Michael Jackson thing and then went lightly with, well, should I or should I not moonwalk? Yeah. And his wife had to intervene and say how inappropriate it was. Yeah. I would say this. It was also an inappropriate question. Yeah. If I were a head of a newspaper or a publication and I had a reporter ask the question in a situation like that, that person would have been reassigned if not fired. So, you know, this is an interesting situation. I've had people on the show say, they've reminded me of somebody, and that was Senator Byrd.
Robert Byrd?
Robert Byrd of West Virginia, who was a dyed-in-the-wool Klansman. Yeah. And
also Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black.
And Hugo Black. Oh. And those men, their lives, they changed, and not overnight.
Yeah.
But what they did, I think Byrd voted for every major civil rights bill. Hugo Black was a leading liberal. And I've had people say, Roland, that two things. One, we ought to be forgiving and look at their record.
Yeah.
But then I've had black folks say we're too forgiving.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, Robert, go ahead. Then I want to switch to Fairfax.
Yeah. I'm in that we have been too forgiving category. That I think if we make the exception for Northam and for the Attorney General, then when that picture of Trump in blackface from 1980 shows up, or that picture of any other Republican in blackface shows up, we lose the moral authority to demand them to resign also.
Well, a couple of them have shown up as a Florida GOP guy, and he's not resigning, and not the Secretary of State, a State House.
And he said today, he said, I'm not quitting.
resigning.
We have to have a consistent standard that if this is who you are, we're going to run all of y'all out.
Now, so let's talk about Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. I've seen folks tweet that his accuser, that she's credible, Fairfax should resign. Fairfax says he has been unequivocal, that it was consensual, that what she describes didn't happen. Washington Post, she went to them in 2017. They investigated, they reported they could not corroborate her story or his story with anyone. Mm-hmm. So the question is, I also want to bring in Teresa Lundy, who was a founder of TML Communications, on the phone as well. So she's going to join our panel on this conversation. So, Tima, again, I'll start with you being in Virginia. Mm-hmm. Democrats last year with Kavanaugh said, believe all women.
Yeah.
There have been others who said, wait a minute. Are you assuming that if any woman makes an allegation, it's absolutely true and there's no recourse for the man who is being allegedly who did this? So the case of Fairfax, where we go?
Yeah, that's a question I think a lot of people are wondering. As someone who has, worked and volunteered in domestic violence shelters and sexual assault hotlines, but who also knows a lot of the players involved, at least on the Virginia side. We held that standard on Kavanaugh last year. And she had a lot of corroborating evidence, Dr. Ford, like therapist notes and conversations with friends and who she told at the time, people who remembered the party, but maybe didn't necessarily dates. I think what has been a lot of it's been unfolding a lot in the last few hours. I think what has been problematic, I think, for some folks is some of the responses, right, to initially some of the allegations. And is she real, first off? Because first off, it was just like a screenshot. And then it was like, okay, in the era of Russia and bots and stuff, is this real? Then she became an actual person with a story and whatever. I think it is very important to remember that, especially in a situation like this, two people can have a very different implication of what's happening and the importance of the conversation around affirmative consent. I think that the initial response that Fairfax's office put out on Monday was, too long, and not only said that the Washington Post didn't corroborate it, but said there were lots of flags, which the Washington Post then
see red flags and inconsistencies. But the Post did not run a story.
It did not run a story because they couldn't corroborate anything.
Got it.
Right. And so it's like a he said, she said, and that's problematic, but because of what the Democrats have said, and a lot of advocates have said, and I think that it's based off. I found the responses a bit disappointing from the office on this matter. I think this statement tried to correct some of that today, but in saying it was consent, you could have said, "I'm hurt. This was consensual. This is what I believed." And, I will let her make her statement and go from there. But
Teresa, I want to bring you in because, again, what we have here is she's making an allegation against Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. In her statement, she said that she didn't tell anybody from 2004 to 2017 until she saw a photo of him running for lieutenant governor. Then she said she told folks in 2017. And so now, again, so where we stand is, to Atima's point, you don't have therapist notes. You don't have a friend saying she came to me. Now, at the time, 2004, she was working with a rape crisis center in Boston, and she also gave an interview in 2007 where she talked about being sexually molested by her father, who went to prison. In her letter, she said, Teresa, that the Fairfax folks are saying, well, she made no mention in this 2007 interview about being sexually assaulted in 2004. She says, well, because I didn't mention it doesn't mean it didn't happen. And so how do you assess all of this as to where we stand today?
Thanks, Roland, for bringing me in on this. Where we stand today is really quite difficult because, honestly, I think the rule of justice needs to start calculating. As it seems right now, it is not even taking place, where, you know, public opinion is now in place. And again, we're not dealing with someone who's a first-time candidate. We're dealing with someone who's ran for elected office before. And now we're kind of seeing, you know, unfortunately, we see the Kavanaugh piece as a example, especially with the law firms being a part of the overall conversation, which means they're actually taking the ranks and actually helping, you know, national clients as it relates to this. So obviously they're getting their own boost. But I think where Justin Fairfax is, he's not having those supporters that he had in 2017. What I mean by that, I mean, you know, President Barack Obama in 2017 was at the forefront of all the conversations, and also bringing him on stage saying he supports him. So it's kind of one of my major concerns, because now these people that backed him when he was on a national stage early on, either in Virginia, either in Washington, even in some of his districts, there was no report then, right? And there was numerous opportunities to do so. So for me, I'm just I need to see more of the people that said they supported him early on. Even though this notice did come out in 2017 and there was no investigation on the Washington Post, I think, again, if I was just in Fairfax on the PR side, I would go a step further. I would do a lie detector test on his part. And then also, again, identifying some of those influencers and making sure that they are promoting what they initially thought about who he is and making sure they're promoting his character. I think that's the best ability right now.
Robert.
Aaron, throw the whole state away. I've had a bright line on this issue.
No. I'm discussing the whole state, specifically
on Fairfax. I've had a bright line that if these accusations come out against an individual, I believe you should resign, adjudicate the issue, get.
But how? Okay, hold on. But how do you adjudicate the issue when she says it happened in 2004? This is 2019. Mm-hmm. There's no evidence. There's no friends were told. So you literally, the reason the Washington Post didn't report it, they said they could not corroborate her story or his story. So how do you adjudicate something when there's nothing there to adjudicate?
Well, let's understand the vast majority of sexual assaults are never reported to anybody. I
understand that.
The amount of shame that goes along with it, the amount of victim blaming that goes on. Now we're telling somebody, take it from the other perspective, we're telling this woman to go back 15 years and find proof of what happened to you that you can demonstrate to the public. This is part of the reason people don't come forward with these accusations.
You just said adjudicated. I'm asking you, okay,
yes,
as an attorney,
yes,
how do you adjudicate something when there's nothing there to, you literally have.
I don't think she's pressing charges.
Yeah, my point is we're talking about the court of public opinion,
exactly.
not the statute of limitation, not a court of law.
No, but you said adjudicate. So that's a legal statement.
By that, I mean adjudicate in the court of public opinion. So you take a lie detector test, you get interviews from friends, you get statements from people who are also at the convention, you find all the information possible, and then if you want to come back into public life after that with your proof that you didn't do it, go ahead.
Joe Madison.
I think we have a bright line rule.
The Washington Post couldn't do any of that.
You know, somebody with 3 daughters and a wife, and I'm sitting here thinking that many women who come forth, and this whole movement has given them courage to do this. But Roland's making a very good point. There were 2 people, and that was it. There's no physical evidence. There's no other thing. The one thing that bothers me about this is there was also the statement made I decided to come forth when I realized he might be governor.
Yeah.
Why should that make a difference?
So I will actually speak to that because I know
Yeah.
I know a lot of black women, especially women survivors, but black women survivors who I've talked to in sort of my work. And one of the things was Zerlina Maxwell, who you might know from MSNBC.
Yeah.
She said, "Listen, if I have never named who have raped me, but if he was ever to be appointed to the Supreme Court, run for governor." Heck yeah, I'd say something.
That's the answer.
But here's but to that point, I want you to speak to it, and Teresa as well.
Answers that question.
No, but I do want to speak to it. So in Virginia, the governor only serves one term. So even when he ran for lieutenant governor, he was the second highest ranked person in the state.
Right. Well, and I think I read in the statement or some article that the first time she's out in California, I have a lot of people who don't pay attention to anybody else's state politics but their own, that she'd seen something about it in October 2017, and that was when he was running for lieutenant governor.
Right.
He had run for AG and AG.
Yeah, he ran for AG,
but she hadn't really noticed that.
Right. The election was the next month.
Yeah.
And what's also interesting, she said she never talked to him again. In his statement, they had talked afterwards.
Yeah. And I mean, that, I guess, like, you're the lawyer here, but I mean...
hold on, Joe, I'm going to bring it to Teresa.
No, all right, the only thing is, I know people said he should take a lie detector test. I think that would be a start.
Should she?
That's where I was going. She should take a lie detector test, too.
Teresa?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree with that. So
Teresa, go ahead.
A lie detector test can, it's not fully 100% because, apparently there's some sort of science where you can move around it. But I think, again, if you're going to state some of these claims and like the young lady said, just, decide when, depends on what type of office or higher office they decide to go and run for. And then that's when you decide to tell your story. That is actually a very bad stain on civic engagement at a whole, but also just hurting someone's character. And obviously, the first step is just the lie detector test. But again, there has to be some measurement of actuality and facts that should come across. But I'm not seeing that right now, and nor is anybody actually bringing that up for dialogue. So unfortunately, right now, where the landscape is for that second highest office in Virginia for only one term. So, but it just seems like the special election that will particularly happen if both of them, in the court of public opinion, kick them out, then I think something else probably will have to take place instead. So
got it, Robert.
I take the exact same standard that I use in my personal life that I use in public life. So if my sister, mom, nieces, nephew, wife come to me and say they've been assaulted, I'm riding out immediately. So I think that's the exact same standard we have in public office.
Let's flip it. Woman accuses you exactly what he's been accused of.
I'm stepping out of public. Yeah, go ahead.
Hold up. Let's say you work for a law firm. Do you resign from the law firm?
Resign. I'm taking my time out of public life. I'm going to prove my innocence. I'm going to gather all the information. If I say we have 3 months of correspondence, I'm getting 3 months of correspondence. I'm getting witness statements. I'm getting lie detector tests. I'm going to prove my innocence. Also, I don't put myself in positions like that. But because of that, step out of public life, bring your information, then get back. Then you can rehabilitate yourself and come back triumphantly. Don't try to fight your way through it in the public eye.
Atima, and then final comment with Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I think he, in this era that we're in, and especially because, she has come out and been very incredible, he has to not respond in some of the ways that he has initially responded, sort of in press gaggles about it. And also, I forgot about the 3 months of correspondence, but that would probably be something automatically he would want to produce, right? And if he said, she said. But I think also I want to say this, and it applies to all three of them. All are entitled to forgiveness, grace, atonement, all of the things, and due process, whatever that is in regards to any of their cases. None of them are entitled to hold the office that they hold now.
Joe.
I don't know what else to say about this. I mean, it's two people started out apparently consensual with kissing and whatever else happened in a hotel room. I'll just close my comments that this is a teachable moment, particularly for young men, any man for that matter, that no means no. I mean, this is just that simple. And I hate to close that way. But I think, you know, I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know, you know, we've had, I think Bobby Scott
was accused of sexual harassment.
And he, you know, he stood firm. Look, I did not do this. And that sort of went away. Yeah. I believe it went away.
It was tied to a couple of conservative guys who put this girl up.
And that's the other thing. We forget there's politics involved in all of this exposing now and keeping this alive.
Got it.
You know, so I just, it's a horrible situation. We have to, as men, understand that we cannot use women as objects, and when they say no, no is no.
All right. Folks, we'll be following this story, certainly to see what happens next. Is one certainly not over. Got to go to a break. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
Musically, we were changing the way that we spoke to reflect the way that we felt. Jazz musician Dizzy Gillespie.
All right, folks, let's talk about this initiative by Ford. Now, calling all HBCU alumni, students, and leaders, you can enter the Ford Motor Company HBCU Mobility Challenge and win $25,000 for your school. Building on their long-term support of HBCUs, Ford is looking to improve mobility in HBCU communities through innovative solutions. Now, the winning program will receive a grant of up to $25,000 to implement their proposal. The deadline to apply is March 31st, 2019. Now, we want you to go to fgb.life. That's fgb.life for more info and to apply. It should be, of course, you see right there, fgb.life. Okay, now Ford goes further in our community. So again, you can pick up $25,000 there to support Ford. All right, folks, I'm going to talk about this story out of Texas. Now, we told you the story before about Crystal Mason. She was a sister who went to federal prison. Okay, she got out of federal prison and she voted. Now, she thought that she was able to vote. All of a sudden, they said, nope, you could not vote because you was convicted of tax fraud in 2011. Again, she was on parole at the time. Last year, she was convicted of voting illegally in March of last year. Now, her parole officer testified in court that she was not told that she could not vote. Now, by her voting, it violated her parole, so she was sent back to prison. Now, here's a new twist. Just as she was about to be sent to a residential detention facility, the district attorney in Tarrant County pulled up, wait for y'all, an old sewage violation and charged her with the crime. A sewage violation. So she couldn't be transferred out. Now, the DA, Republican, Sharon Wilson, is sitting here trying to keep her in. Now, earlier today, I talked with Kim Cole, Crystal Mason's attorney. She spent a lot of time on the phone today with the DA's office saying this makes no sense. This morning, they dropped the charges. Well, this is important because you need to understand that they're trying to make an example out of Crystal Mason. To sit here and to send this sister, who, yes, was convicted of tax fraud, she admitted she did it, but she got out of prison, had a family, she was working, a job, she voted illegally, sent her to prison for 5 years for violating her parole. But to have a DA file a sewage violation charge shows you exactly what the thinking is there in Tarrant County. I want to quickly go to our panel here. And Judge Robert, again, as an attorney, this shows you, one, how stupid these folks are in Texas. Okay, and I can say that. I covered City Hall there in Fort Worth. I know how Tarrant County government works. But to sit here and go find a sewage violation, that's 100% bullshit.
Well, I think it's not just Texas. That's the problem. That across the country, we have majority African-American districts where you have white Republican district attorneys and judges who dominate the judiciary, who dominate the prosecutorial ranks, who dominate law enforcement. And for that reason, we very often go into court not innocent until proven guilty, but guilty until proven innocent. So this is a clearing call to all of us that we have to get more people who look like us and who think like us into prosecutors' offices around the country, because without that, we have no way. The DA decides who gets charged, where, or what goes to the grand jury, what the charges are against you. Prosecutorial discretion is at stake. We got to get in there and get in the fight.
I tell you, my brother did run against her in the recent election. I met him when I was in Fort Worth. He lost. But again, this shows you just the sheer arrogance of a DA to go pull a sewage violation charge.
Yeah, it's one of the, to pull a sewage violation charge, and not only, this is sort of a long-running consequence of the 13th Amendment and all of the things that have come that have held up Jim Crow. These are all these remnants sort of left over. And, you know, the fact that, I mean, they've gotten, right now, they're dealing with all of their voting fraud, like, oh, there's massive voting fraud with all the Texas Secretary of State and all of this, and they're trying not to deal with the fact that their state is radically changed in color, and that means it might be a lot of different votes cast that they don't like, who are the people who are in control of the state. So this tells you just how desperate they are to sort of, I don't know, I would say put people in their place.
Kim Cole, her attorney's on the phone, joining us right now. Hey, Kim, when you got word that they were trying to charge her on a sewage violation, surely your head almost exploded.
Absolutely, Roland. This is ridiculous. It is insane. I found out about this because Crystal is eligible for to be released to a residential reentry center. And so through this process, I guess they did a warrants check. And as it turns out, there was a warrant for a sewer charge.
Like, first of all, what the hell is a sewer charge?
Not a sewage violation.
What is that?
Yeah.
It's a violation for I guess a code violation for her sewer at her property.
A code violation. Mm-hmm. Now, this is the kind of stuff.
Not a criminal charge.
Civil.
So this is the kind of stuff that when you look at what happens, how cities, frankly, keep the poor by slapping on these type of charges. And what's crazy is that the DA didn't look at it and go, okay, this is stupid. No, she actually filed charges.
Yeah.
Yes, so Roland, this gets a lot deeper than you have likely have time for right now. But the warrant for this was, I found this out after the fact. The warrant for this was obtained on August 30th, which was the same date that Crystal had her hearing to revoke her federal supervised release. So the Republicans in Tarrant County wanted Crystal to go to prison. They wanted her in jail. So this was in my opinion, a fail-safe measure in the event that the federal judge didn't revoke her federal supervised release. Then they had this warrant hanging over her head so that they could take her into custody. So
that is unbelievable.
The warrant's been active since August 30th. Nothing ever happened. Nothing became of it because the judge did sentence her to prison time. However, now that she's eligible for supervised release, we found out there was this warrant that was that's been outstanding. No charges had been filed. And I guess now that they find out that she's up for release, they took it to the DA's office. And on Monday, the DA filed charges.
So you've been on the phone since then. So what's the status of Crystal Mason's case right now?
Right now, these charges have been dropped, and the warrant has been recalled.
Okay. So will Crystal now be transferred to a detention facility?
She will be, she is now eligible to be transferred. There's still a process that she has to go through, but at least this doesn't block her or prohibit her from being considered to be transferred to a residential reentry center.
And how much time is she supposed to be serving in prison?
So the time that she's serving right now, she's in federal custody, and the judge in her federal case sentenced her to 10 months in federal confinement for violating the terms of her supervised release by obtaining a new charge, which was, in fact, the voting charge that she was convicted on. And on that charge, that conviction, she was sentenced to 5 years in state prison. So a total of 5 years and 10 months.
Okay, so she's going to leave federal prison.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's got to go to state prison?
Hopefully not. Her state case is under appeal. There hasn't been a decision on it yet. So once she discharges her federal sentence, if her state case hasn't been finally decided, she'll be a free woman until her state case has been decided.
Do you have any state legislators who are in your corner saying this is idiotic?
We're working on it. We're working on it. There is a petition going around, not only one to our governor, but there's also one to the district attorney, because the DA's office can also commute her sentence.
The DA's office there in Tarrant County?
Yes, we can petition for the sentence to be revised, so to speak. She was sentenced by a judge. She did not have a jury trial. She had a bench trial at the advice of her previous attorney. She, I guess, opted to not do a jury trial and was sentenced by a Republican judge, who was just elected, by the way, re-elected with no opponent in Tarrant.
Well, it looks like in Tarrant County, somebody needs to be having opposition next time he runs. And I might have to be making a visit to the folks down in Fort Party Worth, because this is stupid to actually spend state resources to imprison somebody for 5 damn years for voting illegally is an absolute waste of state resources.
It is an absolute waste, Roland, but it is not about punishing her for a crime. It's about sending a word to all of the black people in Tarrant County who would dare show up at the polls. This is to send a message to the black community.
Got it.
Because Tarrant County is the largest urban district in the country, and they are proud of it. They have folk in check over there. I'll just put it that way.
Well, again, I spent time for 2.5 years covering City Hall there in Fort Worth, so fully understand. Kim Cole, we appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Keep us abreast of what happens.
You're welcome. Thank you for your support, Roland.
All right, thank you very much. All right, folks, let's go now to Columbus, Ohio. The folks there are searching for Amber Evans, a well-known community activist. She has been missing for a week. Her car was found abandoned. Friends say she would not take off like this without telling friends or family. She's been a key organizer of protest at Columbus City Hall and heavily involved with the People's Justice Project and the Juvenile Justice Coalition. Joining us now to talk about this case and the way mainstream media ignores the missing black people, especially black women, is Derica Wilson, CEO of Black and Missing Foundation. Derica, I don't see this woman's story on CNN, on MSNBC, on Fox. I don't see it. She's been missing for a week.
Right.
A female activist.
Mm-hmm. Our stories are unworthy with the mainstream media. You know, the decision makers in the newsrooms, they don't look like us. And we struggle with stories such as Amber's story and so many other Amber Evans out there. You know, here's a lady that's missing a week. Family don't know where she is, well known in the community, and no one's looking for her.
Have you been in touch with folks down there but what kind of support do they need? I mean, what does the search look like? What's going on?
There's not much effort besides her family, her friends, doing the searching. We need coverage because she can be anywhere. I know that her car was found. Her car was found in a location where she would typically go to clear her head. She had just gotten into an altercation with her boyfriend. And so, there is also that correlation between missing persons and domestic violence.
Right.
I would love to know what the efforts are for the Ohio Police Department as far as their interviewing with the boyfriend to try to get more information. This woman did not just fall off the face of this earth.
Joe, you got a question?
No, I was thinking about the newly elected governor of Ohio, DeWine, who tries to be a compassionate Republican. He definitely should be challenged. The state troopers ought to be challenged on this one. And, Roland, we all should be on this case. What tends to happen is, wealthy white people, what the first thing they do? They hire private investigators and they hire public relation firms. And you know how that worked when you were at CNN.
Yep.
And they can then get that kind of attention.
But even if you're white and wealthy, as long as you're white.
And they hire those firms. We don't have the resources to do that.
We don't. But some of them don't hire. It's the law enforcement that always also bring in the FBI too. Yeah. So with our cases, they're not even bringing in the FBI. So you're absolutely right. Some of the families hire, but then law enforcement, they don't really take our cases serious. They will quickly ask for additional resources with the FBI. And of course, when they get involved, you see it all over the national news
and
coverage.
I think this is where, once again, I'm one of these people, I believe you go to the top.
Well,
and you go to the governor who just got elected. He had a pretty good percentage of African American votes. It shouldn't make any difference. This should transcend race. This is someone's daughter, someone's mother. I think the reality is you take it to the top. Everybody listening should be just blasting the governor's office so that he, tomorrow morning, picks up the phone, calls the powers to be in Columbus, and they deal with this.
Maybe the family even need to conduct a press conference, in front of the governor's office.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Atima and Robert. Go ahead.
And also, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that it just reminded me, and I can't remember if it was Family Guy or Simpsons or which one. I think it was Family Guy, and there was a clip with the news, and it was like reporting on a girl missing, and her name was Becky, and everyone was like, oh, that's so sad. And it's like, her name is Becky Gutierrez, and they're like, oh, that's not news. Like as they comment on how women of color, people of color, when they disappear, are minimized. And it's like, great, this is like on a national cartoon show, but it's an issue that 7% of, I was reading this before I came here, 7% of black women represent the population, but we're 35% of missing cases, and it's not taken seriously.
And also I think this goes to the issue of voices in the media and the African American community, because often we don't control the editorial boards, we don't control the newsrooms. It's hard to get our stories told by people who don't have a particular amount of interest in what's going on with us. And if you look at cable news after 6 o'clock, there's very few voices out there who can make this a crusade. Or
but see, this is what the mistake we make. It's not even a question of the voices, because those people who are on the air don't control their shows.
That's right.
That is right.
Okay, let's be real clear.
That's right.
Be real clear. The executives determine what those rundowns are.
Absolutely.
All right? Now that's...
I'm sorry, and I'm not going to let us off the hook. And I'll tell you why. Man, if this were Beyonce or some other, look what happened like with the Super Bowl and how all of that blew up. We have to have the same urgency and use this effectively, because we can't we all have agreed we can't depend on the executives in the newsroom. They don't look like us. Yep. They're firing people left and right
who look like us.
So the reality is that I don't want to. I think people. You think of the tens of thousands that are watching this show right now, and you let the governor or the mayor of Columbus get 2,000, 3,000 hits, phone calls, something's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. When we started the organization 10 years ago, missing persons in the United States African Americans represented 30%. That number has increased to 40%. So this is a epidemic that's happening here, and we really need to get more diversity. We need to get more training for law enforcement, because I'm a former cop, and I do recall when I was in the police academy, we only spent, out of 6 months, we spent an hour on missing person cases because it's not considered a priority.
Well, here's the deal. Just so, well, first of all, so y'all probably sitting there like, okay, why is he over texting on his phone? I don't waste time when it comes to this. So just so y'all know, okay, I just sent a text message to the former mayor of Columbus, Michael Coleman, who's a brother. I sent a text message to Congressman Tim Ryan of Ohio. Sent a text message to Congresswoman Marsha Fudge of Ohio. Then also Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, who represents Columbus in Ohio. So I'll let y'all know what they hit me back with. So just so y'all know, because see, I don't sit here and just waste time. So I'll let y'all know, follow me on social media, what they say. But I'll be damned if you're going to have this sister who's an activist missing and you're not going to have any coverage that's taking place. And yeah, I'll also be jamming up all these cable networks. And just so y'all also understand, I'm not going to sit here and just hit them on Twitter. Jeff Zucker, I'm sending you an email. Phil Griffin and Miss NBC, I'm sending you an email. And also Suzanne Scott, CEO of Fox News, I'm sending you an email as well, just so y'all know. Anybody else?
I'll do the same.
Everybody.
Okay. Absolutely everybody.
All right, then. Derek, I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank
you. Folks, how can they reach your organization?
Reach us on online, bamfi.org, or on Facebook, Twitter, we're Black and Missing Foundation.
And can you put the mayor's information and the governor's information?
Yeah, the phone numbers and emails.
All phone numbers, emails, that type of thing.
Yes, we are using our platform. We have the information about Amber on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those platforms. So we're circulating it and using all of our partnerships and platforms to get the message out there.
All right, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much, folks. Real quick, officials in Hazleton, Pennsylvania said a high school girl started an argument which provoked 3 fights and got out of control. It was actually the school security officials who got out of control as they punched the girl and pulled her hair. Watch this video. Now, no matter what may or not have happened before the video started, these 3 white men were out of control. School officials defended the security officer's conduct. No shock. No shock at all. All right, I want to thank Robert. I want to thank Atima and Joe for joining us on the show. Thank you so very much. Derek as well. To also Kim Cole, thanks a bunch, as well as Teresa Lundy and Congressman Al Green as well. Hey, folks, don't forget, one of the reasons why it's important to support Roland Martin Unfiltered is because of the conversation we had today, but also the stories that we cover, the mainstream media consistently ignores. And so it's important for us having our own voice, even though I barely got one, in our own platforms. So I want you to do me a favor, go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, join our Bring the Funk fan club. And remember, every dollar that you give also goes to making this show possible. Tomorrow, we'll have our live show, plus after our live show, an amazing interview with comedian Ali Sadiq. He talks about going to prison in Texas, talks about some older brothers who were in prison who saved his life. And I can't wait till y'all hear the story of what they did and how they shut the prison down when the Million Man March was held here in Washington, D.C. And so it's an amazing interview with comedian Ali Sadiq. We're going to live stream that tomorrow right after the show, so we can't wait till you see that. All right, folks, I got to go. Y'all have a great one. Holla. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? The blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.